the owner gave no sign of recognition, and she introduced herself. Narrator introduced herself to the owner that I am Mrs. S. daughter. But the owner of the house, Mrs. Darling, denied. Denied means refused that she is knowing her. कि उसने मना कर दिया कि वो नहीं जानती. Her face gave absolutely no sign of recognition. और जो मिसेस डॉलिंग के फेस पर भी कोई ऐसा एक्सप्रेशन नहीं आ रहा था जिससे वो शो हो कि वो उसे रिकॉग्नाइज पहचानती हैं. द ऑथर थॉट दैट परहैप्स शी वॉज मिस्टेकन. नाउ इट वॉज very doubtful situation whether she has knocked the right door or wrong door. So she was in confusion and had rung the wrong bell. That she had rung the somebody else's door. The author got a glimpse of her mother's green knitted cardigan. Author saw her mother's green knitted cardigan. Knitted, but सिलाइयों से जो बुना जाता है, that is knitting. She saw the look of mother's green cardigan which Mrs. Darling was wearing. Now the author was sure that she was not mistaken. She is on the right address. She had no doubt that she had reached the right address. Now there was no confusion that she had reached the right address. She told Mrs. Darling that she knew author's mother. Now Mrs. Darling realized that she is observing the her cardigan. That's why she said that that I know author's mother. She accepted that she is on the right door. Mrs. Darling was confused. She thought that no one had come. She was confused. She was sure that nobody come to take the things. The author told her that only she had come. The author told that I am the only one who left in this world and I came here. And Mrs. Darling told her that she could not help her and close the door. She refused to help the author and close the door. Now it was clear that she recognized her, but she refused to recognize her. जानती थी, पहचानती थी, but वो उसे पहचानना नहीं चाहती थी. The author remembers, now the author recalls, after this refusal, the author walked back to the station. She went back to the station to go to her house. Her mother, when she was going to the station, she was thinking about her mother. She started thinking about her mother. Now she is not in this world. During the war, she lost her mother. Her mother had given her Mrs. Darling's address years ago. It had been in the first half of the war. The war had just begun, and when one day author was not at home and she came back, she came back home and noticed that many things were missing. When we are out and we came to our house, we know each and everything, and immediately we came to know that these things are missing. Somebody has taken, or the things are sent for repair or somebody had borrowed it, पड़ोसी कोई ले गया है एट्सेट्रा. आपको अपने ड्राइंग रूम का हर चीज़ पता होती है या घर की भी. तो सेम शी फाउंड दैट द फ्यू थिंग्स आर मिसिंग in her home. Her mother told her about Mrs. Darling. Apparently, she was an old acquaintance and had suddenly renewed their contact. Author's mother told her that her old friend, to whom author was not earlier known to her, so she is the old friend of her mother, and suddenly she started coming to their house. So acquaintance, जानकार. तो ये पुरानी जानकार थी जो अचानक से इनके जो टर्म्स है, रिलेशंस है, वो रिन्यू हो गए थे. शी स्टार्टेड कमिंग टू देयर हाउस. द ऑथर्स मदर इन्फॉर्म्ड हर दैट एवरी टाइम Mrs. Darling come, she took something home. The reason she gave was that she wanted to save all the good things, as the author's mother would not be able to save everything during the war. War में इस तरह की सिचुएशन होती है कि एनी टाइम यू हैव टू लीव द होम और कंट्री. सो ऑथर की मदर ने ये एक लॉजिक दिया कि वो हमारी चीज़ों को सुरक्षित रखना चाहती है बिकॉज उसकी मदर उन चीज़ों को सेव नहीं कर पाएगी. द ऑथर्स मदर विलिंगली एक्सेप्टेड द आइडिया. ऑथर की मदर को ये आइडिया मिसेस डॉर्लिंग का पसंद आया एंड शी द ऑथर वॉज नॉट entirely convinced, but author को ये आइडिया पसंद नहीं आया. The author's mother looked at her reprovingly. Author's mother did not like the idea that she is not ready to accept her wish, because she wished that her friend will save the things for future. And after that they spoke no more about. So they have not talked about this thing. Next, number 46 Marconi Street. This was the address of Mrs. Darling. How the author got the address. The author arrived at the station when Mrs. Darling refused or denied to recognize her. Then when author was going to the station, she was thinking how she met or knew about Mrs. Darling and how she got the address from her mother. When she was going to the station, without having had much attention to the things on the way, the city was well known to her. Only 1-2 years ago she left the city and she had spent all her childhood and young age there. So, but she was busy in her own thinking, so she had not paid much attention to the things on the way. She was walking in familiar places, familiar, known to. इन सब जगहों को से वो जानकार थी. अगेन दोबारा चल रही थी वहीं पे. For the first time since the war, she did not want to upset herself. War के बाद first time she came back to the city and she did not want to pay her attention to the things because she will become upset, because her memories will come back with the sight of streets and houses full of memories from a precious time, because she has spent her precious time, her life's precious time, childhood and young age there. So she did not want to disturb herself by paying attention to these things. In the train back, she took the train and she remembered the first time she had seen Mrs. Darling. It was morning. Now she was recalling how she met first time Mrs. Darling. One day in the morning she got up after the day her mother had told her about Mrs. Darling. This was the morning. The day before that, Mrs. Author's mother told her about Mrs. Darling. एक दिन पहले ही Mrs. Darling के बारे में बताया था. She saw her mother about to see someone out. When she woke up and she was coming down to from her bedroom, she saw that her mother was going to see of somebody. किसी को छोड़ने जा रही हैं. The author had asked if she lived far away. Then author asked that Mrs. Darling lived far away, as she was carrying a heavy case. She was carrying a heavy suitcase. Her mother then told her that Mrs. Darling lived at number 46 Marconi Street. At that time, she came to know the address of Mrs. Darling, that she is residing at number 46 Marconi Street. After that, they had not talked about this address or Mrs. Darling or about the things. So once she came to know about the address, how she, after many years, she recalled, she was also surprised. So dear students, read the NCERT. If you face any problem, then you are free to call me. The chapter is not complete yet. We will complete the summary in the next lecture. Up to now, we have covered the questions. Why do you think Mrs. Darling refused to recognize the author? Mrs. Darling thinks that she refused to recognize the author because she had to return the things which she got from author's house from her mother. That's why she was not ready to recognize her. What made the author wonder if she had the right address? Why the author was surprised whether she was on the right address or on the wrong address? She was wondered because Mrs. Darling denies to recognize her. But when she saw the green knitted cardigan of her mother, then she was sure that she is on the right address. Third question. Why did Mrs. Darling promise to keep the belongings safe? Because Mrs. Darling was the native of that country, and the chances are that author's mother have to leave the country, and she was not able to take all the things with her. That's why Mrs. Darling promised to keep the belongings safe. Thank you.